In this last module of our class, we're going to take a look at the topic of collaboration. We touched on this a little bit in the last module because we talked about professional learning communities, or PLCs, and this is where you'll periodically gather together with a group of teachers who teach the same subject or the same grade level as you to come together and plan and talk about your assessments. But I really want to reinforce to you that you're not alone as a teacher, nor should you feel like you have to work alone. I will say probably one of my biggest downfalls as a first-year teacher was I thought that I had to have it all together and it was kind of my classroom and my way or the highway. And then I learned quite quickly that I did not know everything, that I had a lot to learn from other people, and that's why I really started to heavily rely on the other educators that were on my team and my PLC. So some ways that you'll collaborate with other teachers: you may do joint planning, and this is again where you get together with your PLC and make your lesson plans. You may even do some observations of other teachers. You will certainly do that in your junior and senior year once you all transfer, but I would encourage you even to do it once you start teaching. During your lesson planning period, go observe, a different grade level or a different teacher and see how they're teaching. We learn best from learning from each other. You may do some team teaching, especially if you have some students with any IEPs in your class. You may work with the special education teacher to team teach, or if you have an assistant in your class, you may be team teaching together. I would also encourage you to collaborate with other subject areas. So I talked about in one video the big project I did with the science teacher and the language arts teacher and the social studies teacher. I would encourage you to collaborate and see if you can combine your efforts with other subject areas. Maybe come up with a project that stretches across both disciplines. And just be open to not only for you to receive good ideas, but you also to share good ideas. You're going to become a veteran teacher one day too, so be open to the idea of sharing good practices and sharing ideas of what worked and what didn't. I really want to focus this module on parent collaboration because working with parents is a huge part of being a K-12 educator. There are the 3 C's of parent-teacher relationships. That is communication, consistency, and then collaboration. So with that being said, what are just some best practices in terms of collaborating with parents? You definitely need to be the one to take initiative in terms of communicating with your parents. That includes phone calls, emails, personal notes. That second bullet point there, share positive feedback with your parents first if you can. If something good, especially if you have that student who is a discipline problem, if you can find something good that they did in class or maybe an assignment, share it with that parent because probably they don't receive a lot of good feedback from that student. Consider a variety of communication tools. You may consider, signing off on an agenda book or, sending home a newsletter, which we'll talk about in a minute. Phone calls are great. Most schools now have apps, so for example like Class Dojo, where you can send notes or you can give points, that type of thing. Tap into a parent's knowledge and encourage them to spend time at school, so start thinking creatively of how you can get your parents involved. I know my son's class last year, they had reading groups and they would invite parents to come read with the students. So what a great way of getting parents involved in the classroom and making them feel like that they're a part of their students' success. So also too, the last bullet point is just to remember not every child is going to have a supportive parent at home. I've been in situations like that working with students where I couldn't get up with a parent. I couldn't get them to come in for a conference. There was just no support for them. They didn't have somebody at home helping them with their homework because there wasn't anybody there. So just always keep that in mind too, is that you really want to pay special attention to those students that do not have that parent support. So one of your assignments for this week is going to be drafting a parent newsletter. I would encourage all of you at minimum, especially those of you that are maybe working in high school, don't want to necessarily do like a weekly parent newsletter, but I would encourage all of you to do a newsletter at the beginning of the year, informing your parents about the practices that are going to go on in your classroom. But all teachers can consider something like a monthly newsletter of updating, parents, what's going on in the classroom, what events are coming up, are there anything that parents should be doing with their student at home. If you don't do a monthly newsletter, maybe you do a newsletter based upon, a concept that their students are currently learning in class. So what are some ways that parents can connect with the material that's being learned in class, and how can parents help at home to reinforce the students' learning? You may consider, again, this is over here on the left-hand side, this is a beginning of the year newsletter where it's just giving an introduction of who you are, what type of classroom information, what type of supplies. There's so many different templates out there, and I would encourage you for the assignment this week to use a template. Feel free to. But again, you may consider a weekly newsletter, a monthly newsletter, a seasonal newsletter, just something to keep your parents informed of what's going on in class. Now, you're all going to experience parent-teacher conferences. Some suggestions there: make sure that you bridge any communication gaps. So find out beforehand if you have a parent that's hard of hearing or a parent that maybe doesn't speak English well, maybe you need an interpreter. Use scheduling wisely and give your parents options too. So yes, you are probably going to have to stay after school hours because you do have parents that work during the day. But find some time that works best for your parents in your class. Make sure you're organized beforehand. So when that parent walks in, you want to have all your materials ready, like the student's progress, any type of assignment, documentation, student work. Be prepared to talk about their strengths and things that they need to work on. Always open with a positive statement. So you want to start out the meeting on the right foot. You really want to stress collaboration with the parents. So give them very concrete suggestions on things they can do, whether it be from a discipline perspective or an academic perspective. What are some specific things that the parent can implement at home to help you in the classroom? I would always suggest documentation for all of your parent-teacher conferences. Now, I've worked at some schools where everybody used the same form, which was really nice. The way the form worked is you filled out the front copy and it was carbon copied, so you were able to give a copy to the teacher or to the parent, excuse me. But I've also been at some school systems where there wasn't a form, so I created my own. The reason why you want to do this, the reason why you want to document it, is that if you have another parent-teacher conference in the future with this parent, you want to be able to go back and reference, what did we talk about last time? What did we say we were going to work on? It's always nice too at the end of the conference to give the parent a copy. That way they have something they can go back and reference so they know what you all talked about in terms of what the parent can work on with the student. And last but not least, you are going to encounter upset parents. It is inevitable. I don't care how great of a teacher that you are. There are going to be parents that are going to be upset by something. Make sure that if you do receive one of those type of emails or messages, don't respond right away. You might have to walk away from it and come back to it. When you meet with upset parents, the best thing you can do is just sit and listen. Let them get out what it is that they're upset about, let them air that out, and then you can start working together on some solutions. Don't be defensive. Usually it's not personal. Usually it's just frustration with the situation. Make sure that you're professional at all times. Try to keep the focus on the future. If you need to, set a date for a follow-up meeting or a conversation. I do want to emphasize too, don't be afraid to call in somebody else. So I'll never forget one of the worst conferences I've ever been in, where it was my entire team. I was the math teacher, of course, math, science, social studies, language arts, that's how middle grades work. And the parents started off the meeting by going around the room, and she pointed at every teacher and she goes, "My son likes you, my son likes you, my son likes you, but my son hates you." And she pointed at me, which was just, oh, what a lovely way to start off a parent-teacher conference. And she just grilled me that whole entire conference on, what awful things her child had said about me. And so after the conference, we really didn't have time to discuss the nitty-gritty of what went on in my class. I told her, I really want to work with you on this. I really want to make this a better situation. Let's have a conference with just me and you, and I would like to call in my assistant principal as well. So don't ever feel afraid. If you feel like you're being attacked, which I did in that conference, don't be afraid to call in somebody else to sit in with you on a future conference, because you need somebody on your team too. And I think it was really great, that second conference where it was just me, her, and my assistant principal, because we really got down to the root of the problem of the student hated math, which of course it took it out on me. So we really got down to the root of the problem and really came up with solutions that we could start implementing. Again, just to reinforce, document both positive and negative contacts, because you want to keep those records on file so you can reference them in the future. All right, let's take a look at the assignment that you have for this week. So for the last assignment that you will complete for EDU 187, the first thing I want you to do is read Chapter 10 of your textbook. This has some great information on working with parents. The second thing I would like you to do is to draft a parent newsletter. And so this newsletter could be a beginning of the year newsletter, it could be a weekly newsletter, it could be a monthly newsletter, it could be a newsletter concerning a project or a topic that you're currently teaching in class. You can use whatever format that you would like. I would encourage you to search online for templates, because there's so many templates out there for parent newsletters. Make sure that your newsletter is organized and is visually appealing and easy to read. After you do your parent newsletter, this is not going to be a graded assignment, so you do not need to turn this into me. You do not need to copy me on this email, but I would really encourage you to take all the notes to future self that you have completed in this class and email it to your future self. This is a really cool site that I would encourage you to use with your classes. This would be a great writing assignment for students, but in this email, you can write a letter to your future self, and then over here on the right hand side you can choose the date. I would probably encourage you to send it maybe the summer before you begin your teaching. You don't want to put your corporate email here, you would want to use a personal email. And then you can choose send just this letter for free. You don't have to do a donation unless you would like. But I would really encourage you, because you're going to forget about some of the great ideas that you have had in this class, and you all really have had some wonderful, awesome ideas to implement into a classroom. So to encourage you to remind yourself of everything that you have learned in this class. I will say it has been such a pleasure getting to know you all this semester. I'm really excited to see all that you accomplish in the future. I know you all are going to make awesome educators. If there's ever any way that I can support you during your college career or your teaching career, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.